and secondary education.
This is WBNW 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Congress is poised to pass a bill to keep AM radio in cars, but time is running out. 82 million Americans risk losing the news, sports, talk, traffic, and vital emergency information they rely on. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to pass this bill now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Todd, many people are afraid that if they transfer money to an irrevocable trust, they will be giving up control of their assets and will have to ask their trustee for permission to spend their own money. Now, is this a valid concern?
No, it's really not. And folks, when you think about irrevocable trust, please remember that there are many different kinds of irrevocable trust. There are some that require a loss of control, rigidity, inflexibility. However, the trust we're talking about when you're protecting assets from a nursing home allow the donor to remove and replace the trustee, allow the donor to have really an unbelievable amount of control over the assets that are in the trust. They can live in their house, they can manage and invest their own money, they can sell a house, they can buy a new house. When the money's invested, they can have the income come directly to them. Folks, the control you keep over your assets in an irrevocable trust is really something you must try to learn about. And that's why we're giving you away a guide today to help you understand these trusts.
Request this brand new guide from the folks at Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. 866-848-5699, or you can request it from LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American Veterans 5K Boston. It's a run and walk to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Register now at dav5k.boston.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you here on a PCE inflation day. And if you're not familiar with the PCE inflation report, the personal consumption expenditures, Mike, what's the PCE data referred to as?
The Federal Reserve's preferred measure of inflation. So it may not be the first, but it is preferred.
Yes, all other inflation measures are simply sparkling inflation measures. In order to be the Fed's preferred inflation measure, you have to be delivered at the end of the month and have some, weird little idiosyncrasies that you sort through as you try to figure out what's actually going on. But the Fed likes to look at this. The exact reasons are basically because it has a little bit more stability than some of the other inflation measures that are out there.
The way it's been described to me is it does a better job of accounting for replacements.
Yeah, it factors in the idea that, hey, when prices go up, people make substitutions in their spending habits, such as, hey, in the last couple of years, I've started doing more of my grocery shopping at BJ's instead of at, other grocery stores. Things along those lines are what get factored in. Or, hey, the price of eggs went up a couple of years ago, and so everyone started buying that mung bean paste or whatever it was.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't, because it just sounds... If you're going to sell a replacement for eggs, it just has to sound better than mung.
Mung, yeah.
Mung.
In any case, the readings on inflation for the month of July were remarkably stable across all possible ways of measuring inflation. It was 0.2% for CPI, core CPI, PCE, and core PCE. The exact same measurement, or the exact same measure across those different ways of measuring price increases, which, again, is higher than what we saw in June, but I think probably leads the Fed to feel fairly comfortable with their path at this point, would be my takeaway.
Yeah, I think that, again, the inflation fight's done. At least in this cycle. Could it come back 2 years from now because of something else? Of course it could. But what evidence is there of inflation moving at a rate that is concerning to the Fed at this point?
None.
There's quite honestly none. I mean, you look at it, and I know people look at the year-over-year numbers, but remember, what inflation did in January of this year isn't exactly relevant, and you see this in the 6-month numbers where January has now, fallen off. But you go and you take a look at what we're seeing here, and do we just want to look at PCE? Let's look at.
I've got all the data points in front of me, Chuck, going back 6 months for both CPI and PCE. So you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing in there that is cause for concern. The trends are good. The individual data points are good. The only data point that is, there are two that are remotely concerning. The first one is core PCE in January printed a 0.5. Okay, well, that was in January. Like, what are we doing here? And in February, the headline CPI printed a 0.44.
Mm-hmm. So
other than that, you kind of look at it and you're like, there's nothing here.
Right. So just covering a few of these numbers. Let's just start with the PCE because that's what came out this morning. Hour 40 minutes ago. You had, as we mentioned, July numbers, month-over-month price increases of 0.2%, which was confirmed by CPI and core CPI. So include energy and food, don't include it. Regardless, you're up 0.2%. Year over year on PCE, you're now up 2.5% compared to July of 2023. Pretty darn stable. If you average the last 6 months, you're up 2.4%. And if you average just the last 3 and annualize just the last 3, you're up 1.2% on the PCE. If we take a look at any of these year-over-year readings, the worst one is the core CPI, where you strip out food and energy, and you're up 3.2% on a year-over-year basis now. That's just not a concerning trend. And so, as we've mentioned a few times before, which again is going to take a while for the general public to become accustomed to, is inflation's not the concern anymore. Is it a concern for household budgets? Yeah, absolutely. Everything's more expensive. But what the concern is now for markets and for the Federal Reserve is the state of the labor market, which has shown some weakening since over this same period of time, right? While inflation has continued its path downwards, unemployment has, taken a step upwards, and that's where the concern should be right now.
So I think overall, when we look at the potential concern about inflation, and I say this quite a bit. Remember, the Fed is not concerned with the price level. And by price level, I mean, hey, what do things cost now? They're concerned with how quickly does that price level change?
Right.
Because the Fed is not in the business of saying, hey, this is how much eggs should cost.
That's what the White House and presidential campaigns and Congress might be worried about, the price level. They're talking about what can we do to make housing more affordable. But that is not the Fed's purview.
You could even make the case that it
shouldn't be Congress's. I agree.
The correct way to approach this is, hey, let's develop a good business environment, and then you can end up with competition that encourages, competitive pricing. But that's neither here nor there. When talking about the Fed, you don't want Jay Powell trying to set the price for eggs. It's not going to be right because there is no right price for eggs. But what Jay Powell is concerned about is, hey, as a whole, when we look at all of the data there, how are prices moving? And in order for inflation to become a problem, remember, you need to have a few things happen, at least based on what we know, because quite honestly, no one has a perfect model of inflation because there is no perfect model. It's not physics. But there are 3 contributors to inflation. A demand-side shock, so more money coming into people's pockets that allow them to pay for higher costs. A supply shock, not enough stuff being produced that people want to buy. And inflation expectations, the idea that, hey, I think these prices are going to go up, and so that in turn drives prices to go up. Today, if you look at all those pieces, when you look at the demand side of things, aggregate demand is slowing, so there's no demand side impulse for higher inflation. Supply chains have gotten much better over the last few years, and in many cases, you had overproduction of some things, which is why, for the last year or two, you could get great deals on grills and things like that, and now you got everyone who bought boats a couple of years ago, they're selling them. Everyone who bought their Teslas in 2020 is selling them for $18,000 now, and again, the oversupply or the undersupply of a lot of things has kind of gone away. There's still areas where you have some concern, but they're minor. It's not 2022 when we were covering the number of ships parked outside the port of Los Angeles on a weekly basis. And finally, on the inflation expectation side, we get a number of different surveys, some from the New York Fed. There's one from the University of Michigan. I think there's a third. I forget who does it. They're all showing inflation expectations are back to pre-pandemic levels. So if you're telling me, hey, inflation meaning the rate of change of prices is going to be a problem, the thing that I ask at this point is, well, where's it going to come from? Like, show me where the issue is going to be. And the only one that I can come to that, again, typically is a, dare I say, transitory thing. Hey, if there's a short-term disruption to gas and oil prices because of, a widening conflict in the Middle East, yeah, that filters through everywhere, but that's also not something that sticks around very long as well, as we've seen in most of those episodes historically.
Right. So, probably behind us. If it starts to trend in the other direction, then we'll let you know. But again, I hesitate to think of a way in which the Fed lowering interest rates at this point in time contributes to higher inflation. Just, it doesn't seem to add up in my mind, and so the path that they're on seems like the one that's going to be continued.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about U.S. Treasury bonds. The reason being, hey, they had a pretty bad run in 2022 and even for, decent chunks of 2023. They're on a nice little run right now. We'll talk about what's driving it and whether it has the potential to continue right after this.
Breaking business news as it happens, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so make sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud member of a military family, including my father Victor and my brother Timmy. Serving my country was one of the greatest achievements of my life, and it's why I choose to give back to this special community. My father built Veterans Development Corporation, and I am honored to continue his legacy of working to help many disabled veterans and their families. It also gives me great pleasure to once again be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K Boston. I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com. The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange has built an incredible partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We can't wait to take part in this year's DAV 5K. It's set for Saturday, November 9th. At Fort Independence on Castle Island, and registration's now open. You can help our great American heroes by walking, running, or simply making a donation. Your gifts will support services such as the Veteran Advancement Program, which offers permanent and affordable housing opportunities for veterans and their dependents. Learn more at DAV5K.Boston. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Mike, there's a piece in the Bloomberg today. It's titled Treasury Set for Longest Run of Gains Since 2021 as PCE Awaits. Obviously, we've received the PCE data now. But the premise here is very simple. Hey, we haven't had 4 months in a row where the Bloomberg U.S. Treasury Index has had positive returns since the middle of 2021. And now, assuming that things don't fall apart by the end of the day, we're going to do that here in late 2024.
Unbelievable. Sound the... cheering bells. Where does this put us compared to, if I bought this at the exact worst time, where are my losses stacking up at this stage? Am I down, 18% on treasuries since the 2022 washout, or where have things gone now?
Well, the big thing, remember, you can't actually buy the Bloomberg U.S. Treasury Index.
Sure.
It's an index, not a product. But at its worst, if you look back in, October of 23, so about a year ago, you were down about 19% from the peak. Today, down about 10% from that peak. So it's recouped about half of the losses to this point.
Yeah, and again, as rates go up, bond prices fall. That's the standard relationship, and it's again, when people think about bonds, I feel like they don't really think about the price, right? You're all focused on what's the yield that I'm getting, and it's kind of tough to remember. If I bought this thing in 2020, I still haven't quite recouped my losses, which is very different than the experience in the stock market, as the bond market almost always is a very different experience than what we are seeing in equity markets. And again, what I'd remind folks of is each of these buckets has a specific purpose. And if you are reviewing your own stuff and trying to figure out why do I own something like this, it's an important question to ask. You should ask that. Even if you're having something managed by a professional, it's, hey, take a look at this and understand what are the components of what I'm investing in, and why do I own any of them at any given point in time?
Yeah, everything that you have has to have a purpose. It's something where I was talking to someone recently who they've been poking around on trying to buy a home for the last 7 or 8 years. They just haven't found what worked for them in terms of dollars and location and everything, but they've been trying for 7 or 8 years. And I was talking to them, and they were really frustrated because they're like, I've had my money just sitting in a bank account for 7 or 8 years because I always get told you don't want to keep that money in something more aggressive because who knows, what happens. And they're like, why didn't I just put that into the market given how well the market has done? And there's two things. The first is, hey, there's a guarantee that the market would have done this well over the last 7 or 8 years. There are plenty of markets worldwide that have not done particularly well in that time. And just because U.S. stocks have done well doesn't mean that it was a given. You do have bad 7 or 8 year periods where stocks lose money, even in U.S. markets. And so, hey, what if you had had one of those? The other piece is, hey, what if you had only had that money invested for a couple of years and then you found the home that you wanted, but it was while, the COVID crash was happening in 2020, and now your portfolio is down 35% in 3 weeks, and you can't afford to buy the home. And they kind of said, yeah, I know that, but it still feels bad. And I'm like, look, the price that you pay for the peace of mind that you got over that time is the returns that you missed out on. And I know that it can be tough, but there still was a reason that you were doing that, even if it's been a longer time than you have expected, and even if stocks have had good returns over that time.
Yeah, I mean, the same regret that exists over not having invested in the stock market, I hope exists in not having bought the home 7 years ago. You've seen similar appreciation on both those types of assets. And, hindsight is really easy to look back and say, oh, yeah, wish I had done this, wish I had done that.
Mike, you want to talk a little about interest rate cuts and housing affordability?
Yeah, I guess the point that the New York Times article is making here is that we are expecting interest rate cuts. Even mortgage rates will eventually come down with those, although, I'll remind folks, just because the Fed's cutting rates by 1/4 or 0.5% in September, don't expect mortgage rates to come down by the same amount. That's not what the Fed does. But to that point, it's not some magic wand that will suddenly fix the housing market. And in fact, you could make the argument, the successful argument to me, that rates coming down could lead to higher prices in the short term.
Right, it could. If you end up with more demand, then it could provide, some support to some of the housing markets that, right now are seeing some questions about their ability for prices to continue moving up. And so, ultimately, when you look at interest rates, all that's doing is changing. It changes the top-line price number that a monthly payment supports.
Right.
If rates go higher, hey, that top-line price number comes down, but your monthly payment stays the same in terms of, like, if you say, look, I can afford $1,000 a month. If rates go up by 1%, well, the overall price that you can pay probably goes down by about 10%. If interest rates come down by 1%, then you can afford to put up, to say, hey, I'm going to pay a total of, 10% more, but your monthly payment stays the same. So interest rates don't actually... They don't make housing more or less affordable. They just change numbers. They change the price, but not the monthly payment is what I'm getting at. When we talk about what makes housing more affordable, it's the same stuff that makes anything else more affordable. It's, hey, how can we build it more productively? How can we do more with less? How can we make it so that we can, build more easily? All these things factor in. And just because interest rates are moving, it doesn't mean that you're actually seeing the ability to buy more home. All you're seeing is, hey, now everyone has the ability to pay more for the place, which means that your monthly payment probably won't change, and you just have to say, I'm paying more for the same place.
Yeah. I do find the trend interesting where we now see in some areas that, like, condos and multifamilies are in some places struggling and maybe even overbuilt. You've seen rents come down in some of those areas, and the surge again for demand for single-family housing was something that was not as prevalent pre-COVID, and then you saw again, everybody still wants the dream of the picket fence and the single-family home, but you saw so much demand for condos, and millennials didn't want to own homes; they just wanted the convenience of a condo where they didn't have to do any maintenance. And once again, that was just turned out to not be true, as pretty much all the assumptions have turned out about every generation. They tend to want a lot of the same things, just on different time schedules.
Yeah, I mean, look, I bet if you went back to the summer of '69, there were all kinds of things being written about how the boomers were lazy and just smoking a bunch of marijuana.
Hell yeah.
It's like everyone goes through their 20s, and then things change, and you go from there. Quick break. Wall Street Watch is next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American Veterans 5K Boston. It's a run and walk to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Together, let's honor all who have sacrificed for our freedom. Register or donate now at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. Mike, one of the key focuses of this piece is about how to figure out how much income you actually need in retirement and where you start tapping assets from. How do you make those decisions?
Yeah, don't you hate the rules of thumb on this, right? Like, oh, I'm going to need 80% of what I had before. The answer is that there is no rule of thumb. There's no good one that you can use to figure out how much income you are going to need in retirement. Do you have a mortgage? What sort of travel are you planning to do? Yes, you won't be commuting as much. Maybe you and your spouse can go down to one car, but if all of a sudden your plan is to dramatically increase your travel budget, that changes everything.
And when you look at other things that can matter, it could be where's your family located? Are you planning on moving somewhere else? Do you have grandkids that you want to spoil? These are all things that are going to play into that discussion of how much money you need to retire on.
Yeah, no doubt. And so it really does start right there with assessing your retirement ability. It's what type of income am I going to need in order to just be happy. It's not necessarily about maintaining lifestyle. It might be a different lifestyle once you're retired, but will I be content with it? And what sort of activities and lifestyle am I looking for once I am done with that 9 to 5, once I'm done putting in the hours for working and saving for my future?
Our guide this month is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. The way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are in the green to this point as Wall Street digests the Fed's preferred measure of inflation this morning via the core PCE index, which came in line with estimates Right now, the Dow is up by 72 points. S&P 500 is up by about 0.5%, and the Nasdaq is up by nearly 0.75%, or 128 points. Russell 2000 up over 0.33%. 10-year Treasury yield is flat at 3.86%, and crude oil off about 2.5%, trading just above $74 a barrel. Lululemon down by about 0.33% after the athleisure wear retailer beat second quarter earnings expectations, yet fell just short of revenue forecast. Lulu also lowered its full year outlook. Meanwhile, Dell Technologies posted higher revenue and profit on strong demand for artificial intelligence oriented servers. That stock is up by 2%. Sticking with the tech sector, where shares in Marvell Technology up by 5% after the semiconductor company provided an upbeat outlook for the current quarter. Elsewhere, Ulta Beauty slashed its full-year outlook after sales declined in the second quarter. This marks the cosmetic retailer's first earnings per share miss since May of 2020 and first revenue miss since December of that same year. That stock down by 3%. And CrowdStrike was upgraded to buy from HSBC, where the analyst noted that the bad news is behind us on the stock regarding the global outage in July linked to the cybersecurity company's software update bug. CrowdStrike up by 2% to this point. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
Mike, there's a piece in Bloomberg. It's talking about the potential growth of the U.S. workforce over the next decade. And what it's talking about is the fact that the Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that the labor market is only expected to grow by 0.4% a year through 2033, and that is only about a third of the pace that it has grown at over the preceding decade.
Good. That ought to make Social Security sustainable. Look, we have a slowly growing population. Border control and immigration is a topic that is, this seems kind of weird to say, but is getting more and more bipartisan support as something that needs to be restricted further and controlled more. I know that that's primarily illegal border crossings, and you know, I agree there, but there does not seem to be some big push to increase legal migration into the United States, and so will we actually hit 0.4% over a decade? I have no idea. Usually these types of estimates, when you're talking about a 10-year time period, aren't all that accurate. But yeah, I would buy into the idea that compared to the previous 10 years, the growth of the U.S. workforce is going to be pretty dramatically slower.
Yeah, the other thing that you have to remember is starting in 2008, once the financial crisis hit, we saw an immediate 10% drop in the birth rate in the United States. The reason being, people were just like, no, I can't have kids right now. Like, I don't even have a house. Like, this is insane. What are you talking about? And so what you end up with is, remember, the kids that are born in 2008, whether they enter the labor force at 18 in 2026, or whether they enter the labor force at 22 in 2030, or whether they enter at 25 after med school and this and that in business school, whatever it might be, in 2033, it's a smaller cohort than the last decade, because it just is like there just weren't as many kids that we had. So ultimately, when we talk about GDP growth, remember there are two primary levers. How many hours are you working, and how much stuff are you making in those hours? If your number of hours worked goes up by 0.4% a year, which is basically what this is saying, because hours worked, like we don't sit there and say, you know what, the way to improve GDP is this year we're going to raise the work week from 40 hours a week to 41, and next year from 41 to 40. No, that's generally a way that you make people unhappy. Instead, when we talk about hours worked, it's, hey, we just need more people to work more hours. And so if hours worked is growing by 0.4%, it puts an awful lot of pressure on productivity growth. How much stuff can you make in those hours to get GDP growth even in the ballpark of like 1.5% to 2% at most?
Yeah, that ChatGPT better be really, really productive.
So something's got to give here. And the thing is, look, you last I checked, we can't go back in time and have kids 20 years ago. Like, it's it's hard to do that.
Well,
from what I gather.
Can I challenge you there, Chuck? I mean, something's got to give if we are going to continue the growth that the United States has seen from a GDP and markets perspective. There are many countries that are in this demographic situation that we're talking about, and while they may be of a declining influence on the world political stage, I can't look at Japan and say, wow, what a terrible quality of life that people have there. But in the United States, we have set up a number of our programs that rely on a rapidly, or maybe not rapidly, but a growing population and a growing workforce in order to maintain some of the programs that, care for our elderly, for example.
Well, Japan has these problems that they're trying to sort through as well.
Right.
And again, if you talk to a number of people in Japan, they'll say, look, like the overall quality of life is fine, but mobility is stagnated. Like there's no dynamism in the economy. There's no real ability for people to move up easily. And like these are things that are problems when you end up with a stagnant economy. Europe's in a similar situation. Right. I mean, again, different cultures as well, like that plays into it. But ultimately, we don't have facts and evidence that we're good at managing economies that are not growing at a meaningful clip. And meaningful I'll define as, 2 to 2.5% plus. It's a problem when we talk about what that means for societies. And look, maybe we can fix those things, but human beings are human beings. It's kind of hard to rewire our brains that are kind of, built over all these years to, look for certain threats and patterns and this and that. And all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to do things differently because, the economy isn't growing anymore. Well, what do you mean? I can't just change on a dime like that. It's hard to. So I think this is a real problem, quite honestly. And I think it's a problem because we're not going to have a satisfactory answer for fixing things like Social Security and Medicare that require more workers to work in order to keep those systems sustainable. I don't think we have any clear answer for just psychologically, the idea of, hey, like my business can't grow anymore because there aren't more customers to sell into. Like these are things that are tough just from a psychological and social perspective, and we don't have answers for them. Like no one's brought anything meaningful to the table on these ideas, in my opinion.
I would agree. The ways in which we talk about, or don't talk about things like immigration, Social Security reform, Medicare reform. Again, would you put any of those? I guess immigration is the only one that I can think of that is even in the top 5 list of items that candidates for president are discussing this year. And it's not in a way of, hey, how do we increase our population growth? It's quite the opposite.
The two pieces of immigration that you need to focus on, number one is, okay, how do you prevent the levels of illegal immigration that you're seeing to this point? But the second one that I don't think gets enough talk is, guys, we probably need to increase legal immigration by somewhere between like 500,000 and 1 million people a year.
And what does that do to this country culturally? And what type of appetite is there for that?
Honestly, what does it do to it culturally is kind of a crappy question.
I agree, but is that question not going to be asked?
As someone who was, whose great-grandparents were a wave of Italians that came over and conquered New York, we'll figure it out. Like, people hated my great-grandparents 100 years ago, and we turned out okay.
I hate the question, too, but that is absolutely the one that will come up.
It will, but, it's, it's the dumbest question to ask. Like, how will we handle it culturally? Again, we'll figure it out. It's every generation has their own, immigrants that for some reason we say, oh, we don't want those people coming here. Mm-hmm. And generally those people turn out to be just fine. And my great-grandfather was a barber who spoke not a lick of English and came to New York and cut hair. Okay, he wasn't the most talented dude in the world, but he put 8 kids through college somehow and figured it out, and they turned out great. I don't know. We don't have to just be looking for computer scientists out there.
With you.
So let's figure out a way to get people who want to come and work into the U.S. and again, we'll figure this stuff out. You know, like we will. I promise. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's see. What do we want to get to now? Multi-job workers, do we want to talk about that? I know that's kind of touching on this topic, or do we want to talk about travel demand, Mike?
It's Labor Day weekend. Let's go travel demand, Chuck.
Travel, we're talking travel when we come back.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day, and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts, in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
When you stop working, you stop earning a paycheck, and if you don't have a good sense of what your plans are in retirement, you may be faced with some financial challenges. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. In order to retire comfortably without that financial strain, you can either reduce your expenses or find ways to replace your pre-retirement income so that you can determine the kind of retirement lifestyle you can afford. Our new guide this month is called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can get it right now by calling 800-393-4001. In it, we'll walk you through several considerations you'll need to keep in mind as you develop your retirement plan. Get your copy of this brand new guide today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it, and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
piece in the New York Times, Mike. Travel demand is softening. This is not really something that we needed a news article for because we've heard directly from airlines and hotels about, lighter bookings over the last couple of months. But ultimately, it looks like we're in a situation right now where, hey, if you're starting to shop around for winter travel or holiday travel and things along those lines, there are some deals that are likely showing up now that haven't been in the last few years.
So is this bad news wrapped up in a fancy box? Because, I don't know, I have a tough time telling people like, hey, great news, folks. You can get a fantastic deal on that vacation because nobody has any money and can't go on vacation anymore.
Potentially. It's here's why it's a maybe. Remember, there are two things in general that people can spend their money on. Stuff and doing things. 2021, 2020, everyone bought stuff. People bought boats, they bought grills, they bought pools, they bought tables, chairs, they bought, everything but suits because no one wanted to wear suits anymore.
True.
Then all of a sudden, people woke up in 2022 and said, yo, no more grills, we're good. No more boats, we're good. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go on planes. We're going to spend $8 billion on Taylor Swift tickets. We're going to go to, Timbuktu and wherever people decided to go. That's what they did. So this could be bad if spending on going places and Taylor Swift concerts comes down and people don't start buying more stuff.
Right.
But the counterpoint to it is the last couple retail sales reports have been better. The counterpoint to that is they may have been better because credit card usage continues to rise and credit card delinquency continues to rise, and that's something that can only continue for so long before people say, okay, enough of this. So,
and there is something to be said for airlines did increase routes pretty dramatically on the assumption that this demand was going to continue. It hasn't. They haven't been able to pull back on those routes at this stage. And so, yeah, there could be just more of a temporary mismatch in supply and demand versus a looming recession that's causing prices to go down.
Yeah, so where I end up landing on all of this is it's something that I think from an overall economic activity standpoint is concerning. But these are also the first things that tend to get cut, as people are trying to manage their budgets. And so given the state of overall household balance sheets, it might just be like a 6-month break and kind of, hey, let's get our finances in order, as opposed to, hey, this is the start of a new longer-term trend for airlines and what they might expect to see.
Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so make sure you're prepared or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Cushing and Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trust. And as a reminder, August is winding down, folks. This is your last chance to get the guide. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit your family by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Last chance to get it. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Mike, along the lines of the piece that we just discussed on overall travel trends, one of the things that airlines have noted over the last couple of years has been that individuals have wanted to or been more willing to spend on premium travel products, upgraded seating, upgraded hotel rooms, experiences, yada, yada. And so with airlines, a lot of the budget carriers, Southwest, JetBlue, and so on and so forth, are starting to say, hey, how can we figure out how to get more premium product into our airplanes? And the answer is, it's kind of hard for them to do because it's a pretty dramatic business model shift. And if you don't have those seats already in place on your airplanes, Well, you got to pull them out of service, retrofit them, and get them in there, and that means potentially lower profitability in the short term because you can't fly those planes while you're upgrading them.
Yeah, it does seem that every airline is trying to move towards basically the same model. Like, yes, this is happening to the Spirits and JetBlues and Southwest who are trying to upgrade their planes and have some seats that are reserved and larger room and, more perks. At the same time that that's happening, what's happened with Delta, American, and United over the last few years, they've gone the route of maintaining those, first class and business class cabins while at the same time offering, seat options that come with no checked luggage that don't allow you to choose your seat. They've shrunk some of the cabin in economy. And so it seems to me that these airlines are all trying to appeal to every possible customer, which... Again, I'm not sure how successful that would. I've said it before. If I'm a business customer that is looking for some perks, I'm just not going to be booking my flight on Spirit in all likelihood. I'm not going to take the risk of missing my meeting or missing that flight because of Spirit cancellation and then I don't have another option until 2 days later. I'm going to fly the airline that's going to have that reliability and maybe it's not even reliability. Maybe it's just 10 flights a day to the same location. And so I'm not sure. I don't know. I just don't buy it. I prefer the model of differentiation. Spirit, you're really good at one thing, which is delivering an ultra low cost option to routes that almost nobody else does. And I don't know that you need to, offer a first class cabin.
The counter to that is that they are not profitable enough to continue to do that.
True.
Yeah.
So maybe the only way to go is the Delta model.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, you would think that, hey, if all they care about is price, great, they'll do that. But it also is the brand matters, and maybe the Spirit brand is just, kind of so tainted by bad experiences that maybe it's just not getting people to pick up, I guess. I don't know. Quick break here, hour 2, coming up in a little bit.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Now, Todd, it takes 5 years to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. If you aren't sure you or your spouse will make the 5 years before going into a nursing home, should you even bother to do your estate planning?
The answer is absolutely yes, you should bother. And here's why, folks. There's people who maybe don't even start their planning until they're 80. It doesn't mean just because you're 80 you don't try, you don't plan, right? 85, you plan. You don't know whether you're going to get sick or not get sick. But by the same token, when you're 65 and you're doing your planning, you also might not make it past the 5 years. So just because you might not make it past the 5 years is not a reason to get this clock started. For example, lots of times when we put assets in the trust, we leave lots of assets outside the trust, especially IRA assets. So let's say you made it 3 years, but you had $200,000 in an IRA outside the trust. If I got $1 million worth of assets in the trust, I'm happy to spend $200,000 of my IRA to get past the remaining 2 years to get me protected from the nursing home with the $1 million that went in there. So getting the clock started is always better than not having the clock started.
Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. Request this brand new guide called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trust. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
If you're getting close to retirement, you've likely thought about how you'll spend all of your free time. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and with no more 40-hour work weeks or hour-long commutes on your agenda, you might find yourself on the links in Florida or traveling the world with your spouse and family. The financial pieces of the retirement puzzle are important. Having a specific plan about how you want to live day-to-day in your post-professional life is just as important, and our new guide called A Day in the Life of a Retiree may help. You can get it today by calling 800-393-4001. In the guide, we're going to discuss how to connect your financial needs in retirement to where and how you'll be living. Call us again at 800-393-4001 and get your free copy today. That number again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who've served our country and join WBZ for the annual DAV 5K, a run or walk to support disabled vets here in Massachusetts with housing, transportation, and other critical support. Saturday, November 9th at DCR's Castle Island in South Boston. Let's thank all who have sacrificed for our freedom and help our heroes on their road to recovery. Visit DAV5K.Boston to register or donate today.
The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org, CancerSupportMass.org.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Kicking off the second hour of the Financial Exchange is Chuck, Mike, and Tucker, and stocks are just kind of chopping around. I mean, yeah, you got indices in the green, but not really with any kind of conviction, and things have just been flat for the last couple weeks now. The Dow's up 34 points, less than 0.1%. The S&P's up 20 points, about 0.3%. NASDAQ's up 82 points, so about 0.5% after sliding yesterday. So, again, just kind of chopping around, like no clear direction at this point. 10-year Treasury is up 0.8 basis points. That's 0.008%. Almost nothing. 3.875 is where it sits right now. Oil West Texas Intermediate was up a couple dollars yesterday. It's down $2 today to $73.95. So, again, no clear direction there. Gold is down $16.40 an ounce to $25.43.90. And the AAA national average for gas prices fell 1.1 cents overnight to $3.35. Again, still about 15 cents below where it was at the start of August. But the big story is, look, the S&P 500, after all of the volatility that we saw in the second half of July and first half of August, has pretty much been in the same place now since August 19th.
Yeah,
hasn't moved in 11 days.
To me, this is a market that's buying the soft landing, Chuck. Right? Like, we're back at all-time highs. We had some disruption in between, but largely quite calm. And, it might be proven differently over the next few months, but the things that matter right now are how do earnings come along, and do we see that spike in unemployment? And, I know we all wait for the monthly jobs report. We're going to get another one next Friday, but facts have not been in evidence of layoffs and more people filing for unemployment and the traditional signs we see when we are heading into a recession.
And we've also kind of had a data vacuum. Like last week didn't really have too much in the way of meaningful data. This week, the first half was, Tucker and I were talking on Wednesday. It was like, okay, like why are we even here? What are we doing? And
on air, I assume.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yes.
We're like, what the hell?
We were just like, what are we doing here? Like, we could get AI to do the show and it'd be just fine.
Both of our listeners should definitely turn out now.
It's no, today we thought was going to be more exciting with PCE, and it's like,
meh,
snooze fest again. It's just like
that's great. That is perfect.
It's great for investors, but it's bad for our show.
Yeah, bad for Mike and Chuck personally. I'll take
like now we have to cover stories like the cost of Parenthood is going up, and that's bad news for the economy.
That's right.
Because that's our top story for the hour.
Yep.
Which actually, so it is a really interesting story, and Mike and I have talked about this a few times, where the interesting thing is, even in places that have tried to address the cost of parenting, either through, direct subsidies or just providing more time to parents. We've talked about, places in Europe that give parents, a whole year off after the birth of a kid. Places that have, fully subsidized daycare and this and that and everything and ice creams on every corner. And birth rates still fall there. And so what's interesting, Mike, is yes, the cost of parenthood is going up, and it does correlate to falling fertility rates. I'm really uncertain that the cause of falling fertility rates is the cost of raising children, because even in places that have addressed that, fertility rates are still falling.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. So I don't have I don't have a solution to the falling birth rates problem. That's why I spoke last segment a lot about immigration, because that is a different means. But I do have to bring up a number here that gets misquoted sometimes and is important to understand the context of this. The Brookings Institute now estimates that a child that is born in 2015 or was born in 2015 to a middle-income family making between $73,000 and $132,000 will spend an estimated $310,000, just over $18,000 a year, to raise that child just to age 17. That $310,000 includes nothing in terms of higher education tuition costs. I just want to let that sink in for a moment here. $310,000 for things like health insurance benefits, doctor's visits, clothes. This does include some private child care because kindergarten doesn't kick in until age 5. It is a tremendously large cost that falls onto parents' shoulders. And like you said, Chuck, I don't really see it as, hey, this is something that we can address. Well, it's something you can decide as a government to subsidize. I can't think of any market-based solutions to fix the problem. Like, we talk about housing frequently, and hey, how do you fix housing affordability? Build more houses. How do you do that? Well, you could fix zoning rules and allow for builders to build many more houses and allow for multifamily development, and that would probably fix the problem, albeit make a bunch of people angry. I don't have that corollary to raising children.
No, and look, here's the thing. We've seen falling birth rates before. Like, it's actually kind of fascinating, and this is data. It's from a chart in Barron's that's from the National Center for Health Statistics. In 1960, the United States averaged 3.7 births per woman. Not today. In 1976, so 16 years later, that was down to 1.7. And again, like, you look at this and you're trying to figure out, like, because most of the decline happened in the 1960s, and you're kind of looking at it and you're like, okay, what gives? Like, why in the 1960s did you go from having almost 4 kids per woman down to like 2.5? And then the 70s, you kind of understand, like the 1970s, especially the first half, like really kind of sucked economically. Yep. And so like you kind of get that could be a catalyst there. And then the birth rate actually improved from 1.7 in 1976 up to 2.1 in 2007. So there was kind of a slow gradual uptick there. But part of it, like, you kind of look at the 1960s and you're like, okay, like what's the deal here? The only big thing that I can think of, Mike, is the 1960s. One of the big transformations that we saw was the shift in post-war living conditions, largely from, again, still like kind of rural agricultural communities towards more suburban and urban communities where, again, you go back 100 years, kids were assets. And I'm not saying that we should go back to like 5-year-olds working on farms. That's not where I'm going with this. But look, the reason that you had like 10 kids was because you needed them to do all of this stuff in order to keep your household alive and functioning.
You actually just brought up the one the one market-based solution that I thought of that you could use to fix the cost of childcare situation, which would be child labor. Which is I think most of us find untenable.
Yes, there's a reason why we generally don't allow 5-year-olds to work for pay.
But that is the market-based solution to the problem, I guess.
So I guess like when you're looking at this, like kids over the last 100 years, they've transformed from an asset to a family into a liability for the first, 13, 14 years at least. And there's not really anything that you can do about that, and I don't think you would necessarily want to. I don't think we long for the days when it's like, hey, everyone's got to go out in the field to work in order to bring the harvest in every winter. Like, if we're being honest,
come on, Jimmy, get in that coal mine.
I don't think that's what lots of us want to be doing. Like, if you're listening to our show, you probably don't want to be doing that because you're listening to our show and you wouldn't be able to get it in the coal mine. Is that how it works, Tucker? You can't go down with signals; you can only go up.
For what?
Radio doesn't go through like rocks.
Oh, I don't know how it works.
Tucker's never been in a coal mine.
Don't ask me how radio works, man.
If you're working in a coal mine in New England right now, please text the show.
No, don't actually. It's probably not safe to do that. It's it's like texting.
It's a joke. There's no coal mines in New England.
I'm sure there's a coal mine somewhere in New England. I bet there's one.
A working coal mine in New England.
There's one of everything.
No.
Why don't we take a quick break?
Yep.
And when we come back, we'll have trivia, and then I'll find out whether or not there's a working coal mine somewhere in New England right after this.
Missed one of our shows? Catch up anytime by asking your Alexa smart speaker to play The Financial Exchange. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are three of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free, because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so make sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now. That's 866-848-5699. Or You can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
Hi, guys.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only. I just realized today's the last day of our 80s themed trivia since August is wrapped this weekend. So here's our last 80s themed trivia question. In 1981, one-hit wonder Tommy Two-Tone released their hit song 8675309, which isn't annoying whatsoever. The song reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Trivia question today. According to the song, whose phone number was 8675309? Once again, according to the song, whose phone number was 8675309? Be the fourth person today to text us at 617-362-1385, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text, and we'll give away that Applebee's gift card by the end of today's show. 617-362-1385, and the fourth correct response will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, I did...
Sorry.
Yes.
It's a candidate for easiest question of the year.
What's that?
It's a candidate for easiest question of the year.
I didn't know the answer.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
This song sucks.
Maybe not.
Okay.
In any case, coal mining in New England.
I was wrong.
No, you're right.
No, Bow, New Hampshire has one remaining coal mine that will shut down in 2028.
Oh, I didn't find that. The only thing that I found was there was a coal mine in Cranston, Rhode Island that originally opened in the late 1880s and went through like 3 different owners and operators that finally closed in 1959 after a cave-in that killed a worker, and it basically didn't operate then. But just some like interesting stuff that you find as you're going through here as far as like all of this, how it works. The thing that you don't realize is, like, not all coal is the same. Like, it's coal, but there's different kinds because they're composed differently. And so they were trying to get this Cranston coal mine up and running, and they tested it by seeing if it could feed a steam engine back in, like, the 1910s. And, quote, you'd have this roaring hot fire going, and then you'd put that stuff in from Cranston, and it would just lay there like a blanket.
Sorry, I'm wrong again. I read improperly. The last remaining coal power plant is in Bow, New Hampshire, Merrimack Station. That will close down in 2028. There are no remaining coal mines. My apologies.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So what was the problem with Rhode Island's coal? The anthracite coal produced in the state burned very hot but was difficult to ignite. One geologist described it as, quote, fireproof. So
we're good at a lot of stuff here. Lobster, baseball, Coal is just not one of them, I guess.
They in the 1880s they were shipping 250 to 350 tons a week of coal from Cranston to Pittsburgh, but they could just never quite get it to work the way they wanted to. So thus ends the story of the Great Cranston Coal Mine, and yeah, apparently, actually, I'm reading the end of it now.
Jesus.
Apparently, they didn't fill it in the right way. And so in June of 2001, a 6-foot wide hole that was 40 to 60 feet deep opened up in the parking lot of a Borders bookstore that it was built over, or that was built over the coal mine. And currently that place, I guess, has an LA Fitness in a container store. And I guess they had put heavy equipment on the parking lot, and that caused the collapse of the old coal mine. So there's that.
Can we have Ben do a week of coal trivia in September? I think that would be a good use of our time.
We should really do that like leading up to Christmas or something.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Good idea. Good call.
If you're on the naughty list, this week of trivia is for you.
Yeah.
Anyways, should we talk about more artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think we should. So, biggest earnings report, arguably of the season, was Nvidia that came out Wednesday after the bell. And for anyone that missed it or didn't make it to their Nvidia earnings watch party, which was a real thing, the earnings were great, but not Nvidia great. They were amazing for any other company out there, but when expectations are this high, they weren't all that fantastic. News out today, Apple and Nvidia are in talks to invest in OpenAI, likely similarly to the way Microsoft has done. I don't know. I'm interested in your take on this, Chuck, that, look, these two massive behemoths of the company, and I have different takes on Apple and Nvidia doing this, can't find a better place to invest in the AI startup space than the same one that Microsoft poured their money into.
Doesn't it also, doesn't something just sit wrong with you about Nvidia investing into, one of its largest customers as well? Hey, you bought a bunch of our stuff, let's give you money so you can buy more of our stuff. It feels kind of circular.
Yeah, but we see that all the time. The more concerning piece to me on that is the same one we talked about when Nvidia announced that they are going to be buying back their shares. You are one of the fastest growing companies in the world right now. You are allegedly have so many orders for your chips that you can barely keep pace. And you find that the best thing to do with your cash is to invest in OpenAI?
Well, so again, fast-growing companies invest in startups all the time. I mean, Facebook was growing rapidly and bought WhatsApp, and
Sure.
Google was growing rapidly and bought YouTube, and those turned out to be great decisions for both of them.
Yep.
So I don't have a problem with a company saying, yeah, we've grown quickly, and here's a new frontier, and we want to get into this business and invest in it, because I think that's how you kind of push things forward. But I don't know, something about it just feels more circular to me in this than else in other situations, I guess.
Then let's tackle it from the Apple approach. I mean, largest Apple and Microsoft, massive competitors, investing in the same company that Microsoft has a very deep partnership with.
Yeah, It is a couple of different questions on this. The first is, okay, is OpenAI just that much better than every other company that these guys have looked to invest in? Maybe. We don't know.
Right.
Maybe they are.
I think they might be compared to any other non-Facebook or Google company that's out there. Right? The idea of Apple saying, hey, we're going to go invest in Google's Bard is just not on the table. OpenAI is a clean play, right? They don't do anything else other than generative AI. So that would be the compelling piece there, I think.
The other piece that I think maybe I get at with this is, hey, maybe it really is that expensive to go and build these things from scratch. If there's one company that has the deep pockets to try to do something with AI from scratch, it's Apple.
Sure.
Their free cash flow is absolutely insane, and they got plenty of cash on the books. I mean, their free cash flow for a given year, the last 12 months, is $104 billion, and they have $60 billion in cash and short-term investments sitting on their books right now. But they still decide this is the route to go. what is the expense needed to get to where OpenAI is today? Maybe that's the question, and companies are just saying, no, not for us. Quick break. The answer to trivia is coming up after this.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
Discover the fish and farm market at the Boston Fish Pier. Open every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Boston Seaport. From fresh seafood to juicy tomatoes and sweet corn to grab-and-go options, indulge in the peak of summer's bounty. Support local farmers and enjoy the freshest ingredients all summer long. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, a nonprofit dedicated to championing farmers markets across Massachusetts. Find a market near you at massfarmersmarkets.org.
Are you looking to volunteer for an amazing nonprofit organization that helps our veterans? The DAV Department of Massachusetts Transportation Network needs volunteers right now. This network provides free transportation to and from any VA medical appointment for veterans of all eras. To become a volunteer driver, you do not need to be a veteran or a DAV member. You just need to have the willingness to help our veterans and have a valid driver's license. Sign up now at davma.org. That's davma.org.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help you. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we've got a guide out this month titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree. The big focus of this guide is about figuring out what you actually want to do with your time in retirement, not just the financial piece, but how are you going to spend your days? How does someone go about figuring that out, Mike, or starting to figure it out?
Yeah, Chuck, I love this piece because it is a lot different than our normal course of what we put together from the Armstrong Advisory Group. And what I tell people frequently, one, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your retirement. I have no idea. But the most successful retirees, and by successful, I mean the most content in retirement, who are not stressed about money, are those who have really thought through a coherent plan of not just what I don't want to do in retirement, i.e. work, but what I want to accomplish and do when I'm done working.
It seems to me that it really has to be something where you say, I'm retiring to do this, not retiring from doing that more than anything else.
And often that's the focus because, look, for a lot of us, work is extremely stressful. We've been supporting families for decades, and the allure of not having to do that, not having to pull in that paycheck anymore is really tempting. But I'm here to say that I've looked at a lot of this from a lot of different people in all sorts of different industries, and the most successful ones are the ones that are retiring because they're passionate about something that they want to do that they finally have time for.
Our guide is titled A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia question today was, according to the song, whose phone number was 8675309? That would be Jenny. The hit song by Tommy Two-Tone brought fame and fortune to the band, but unfortunately brought nothing but headaches for the people who shared that phone number. We have two winners to announce today. Winner of the Financial Exchange Show t-shirt was Tom from Elliott, Maine, and the weekly winner of the $100 gift card to Applebee's was Bob from Griffin, Georgia. Congrats to both winners there. And trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. and join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only.
Mike, there's a piece in CNBC today. It's titled "Taxes May Be a Blind Spot in Your Investment Portfolio." And it gets at something that I think can really eat into returns over the long run, which is, hey, it's one thing to find the right mix for your different investments, but making sure that they are in the right type of accounts to minimize your taxation year in and year out, not just in retirement, but over that whole lead up into retirement, is really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Chuck. I mean, what I like to phrase it as, what happens in the stock market, by and large, is out of our control, right? Like, yeah, you may have maybe you're 1 in 1,000 that's really good at outperforming and picking stocks. Maybe that's you, but if it's not, then the advantage you have is, hey, I can position things and guarantee a certain result by taking advantage of the tax code. And that does get overlooked pretty frequently. Everything from, recognizing the capital gains tax rates in the state you live in, right? Like, oh, should I hold this position for a year, or what's it going to cost me if I sell it within a 12-month time period? Because in Massachusetts, for instance, that's a big difference in short versus long-term capital gains versus, quite as simple as, hey, should I be putting my money today into a traditional or a Roth 401k, and when's the right time to switch if I'm doing one versus the other?
Yeah, I think you have, these different things that you need to sort through, and also figuring out, hey, what does my potential tax bracket look like as I go through life? And look, you can only figure out so much of that because
they're going to change.
None of us know. I mean, look, the Trump tax cuts, they are going away in a year and a half if nothing else changes. And so we don't even know what taxes are going to look like in 2026, let alone 2036 or 2046. But, you can try to figure these things out. And like anything in investing, it's also something where, hey, acknowledging that there's some uncertainty, maybe you don't put all your eggs in one basket either, as far as, deciding what to do from an account, selection perspective of, Roth versus traditional versus after tax. Maybe having a mix is the right way to approach that, because you have to be humble about, hey, we don't know what taxes are going to look like.
Yeah, while rare, I know both you and I, Chuck, have seen people who kind of oversaved in that 401k tax-deferred bucket. It doesn't happen frequently, but sometimes you look at it and say, wow, yeah, you actually would have been better served by putting that money into a Roth or a regular brokerage account in some instances. Again, why that's more rare today is because they've kicked back that required minimum distribution age. But, look, this all ties in to, the core idea of planning for retirement. And again, like I said, there are some things that are just beyond your control. What the S&P 500 is going to do today is completely and utterly out of your control, unless maybe you're Warren Buffett and can actually move the market with the words that you say. if you are in that position where you're trying to figure out, what do I do next with my money? What do I do with my savings? Where do I pull it from once I retire? Two pieces. One, we do offer free consultations throughout New England at the Armstrong Advisory Group to help align your portfolio with your overall retirement goals. But two, I wanted to mention that it is the last day of the month here, which means it's the last day to get a copy of our new guide for the month of August, which is all about retirement. It's a day in the life of a retiree where we go through a lot of the questions that our own clients have asked us over the years and a lot of the experiences that they've had over the years when it comes to their own retirements. If you'd like a copy of that guide or just want to talk to somebody at the Armstrong Advisory Group about next steps, the phone number is 800-393-4001. Like I said, it is the last day of the month, which is the last day to get a copy of our new guide for the month of August, A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and you can get it by calling us at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Mike, how often do you shop at Lululemon?
I haven't so far.
Tucker, what about you?
Actually, no, I think I stopped in one and got my wife something for Christmas once, years and years ago.
I stopped in to check out an article of clothing, and I just saw the price, and I left immediately.
The prices are high, I think is a nice way of putting it. And I hadn't looked very often before this, but a T-shirt, this is a plain white T-shirt, just as an example, is selling for $58.
Tucker, no offense, but I'm not sure you would have looked great in those leggings anyway. I think it was a good call passing on them.
I don't know. I think Tucker would be okay in those.
Yeah, okay.
I think he could pull them off.
Fair.
But here's the thing. So Lululemon, they reported quarterly earnings, and they came in with lower revenue than expected. This comes after they botched the launch of their Breeze Through leggings, which they basically pulled from shelves in early July because they got a bunch of complaints about how the product fit. So again, that was kind of a problem, I guess. But look, this is a company that is in a premium space, so I would put them kind of directly opposite Dollar General, who we covered yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's the exact opposite end of the market that they are targeting, in my opinion. Because
high-end shopping malls, they don't put themselves in, they have high-end retail stores, high-end shopping malls. They're not in the same places. Yeah, it's the exact opposite of Dollar General. You're right.
Yeah. It's, some of these $148 for pants? What are they gold-plated on the inside?
It's a luxury.
Know.
It's a luxury good.
No,
yeah.
I got to remind me, right, someone's paying for this because they did have $2.37 billion in sales in the last quarter, so they sold one pair of pants. But in any case, this is something where, the revenue came in 1.5% light, but not a huge miss there. Again, first one in a couple of years that they've had. But overall, the stock is flat today, and part of that, though, is because year to date, the stock is already down 49%, so not much is expected here. This is not something where you're sitting here saying, oh, this is a turning point, for that high-end consumer that they missed on revenue. It seems much more tied to that specific product launch, and the stock's been struggling all year, so I don't think there's any new signal in this earnings report about that high-end customer and how their spending habits may be changing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure it sends us a message about the state of the overall economy. It sounds like execution problems.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Paul LaMonica from Barron's. We're talking Eli Lilly when we return.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Last year, we introduced you to Mark Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud member of a military family, including my father, Victor, and my brother Timmy. Serving my country was one of the greatest achievements of my life, and it's why I choose to give back to this special community. My father built Veterans Development Corporation, and I am honored to continue his legacy of working to help many disabled veterans and their families. It also gives me great pleasure to once again be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K Boston. I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Recent reports suggest that a record 4.1 million Americans may retire this year alone. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're one of them, you'll want to have a retirement plan in place that focuses on several objectives. When to actually retire is a very important one to consider. Retiring early while giving you more time to enjoy life after work also means you'll need your money to last longer. Retiring later may not give you as much time to enjoy life's pleasures, but you'll have more time to save money. It's important for your retirement plan to strike a reasonable balance, and our new guide may help. It's called A Day in the Life of a Retiree, and it's yours free by calling 800-393-4001. The guide discusses these issues and more, so please call 800-393-4001. Once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Summer in New England is spectacular. Winter in the U.S. Virgin Islands is even better. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are 3 of the most incredible islands anywhere in the Caribbean, and their popularity has soared over the past 3 years. If you're ready for your next fabulous vacation, now's the time to check out the American Caribbean. Go to visitusvi.com, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip that you'll never forget. The St. Croix Crucian Festival runs from December 26th to January 4th. Celebrate New Year's on St. Croix and enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, a wide variety of water sports, and some of the greatest musical acts the islands have to offer. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport needed and no money to exchange. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Go to visitusvi.com and make your plans today. That's visitusvi.com. The Financial Exchange is now available on your Alexa smart speaker. Ask to play the Financial Exchange and catch up on anything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy perfect weather, world-class dining, incredible beaches, and a vibrant nightlife. Head to visitusvi.com and book your trip today. No passports needed. There's no money to exchange. Take your next vacation in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com.
As promised, we're now joined by Paul LaMonica from Barron's, and we're going to be talking a little bit of Eli Lilly with Paul today. Paul, how are you?
I'm good, Chuck. How you doing?
Doing great here, and Eli Lilly with a couple of announcements this week, and I'm curious your takeaways from how they're doing and what they announced earlier this week.
Yeah, Eli Lilly has been a phenomenal stock this year, soaring thanks to the success of their weight loss GLP-1 drugs, Manjaro and Zepbound. And yeah, the company announced earlier this week that they are going to be able, because of some of the supply shortages, to allow for some smaller doses when needed for people who are using these drugs, obviously not just for obesity treatments, but also for various diabetes and cardiovascular diseases as well. Along with Novo Nordisk, which makes Wegovy and Ozempic, these drugs have kind of taken the consumer world and stock market by storm. Novo Nordisk also a very strong performer this year, but with Eli Lilly, I mean, shares have just soared since their earnings a few weeks ago, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that the company joins Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway in the trillion-dollar market cap club that he just got into earlier this week.
What are we seeing in terms of like actual revenue growth from them, and is it enough to support this? Just again, I haven't looked at it closely. Like, how much is revenue actually growing for them?
Yeah, revenue is growing phenomenally for the entire company. You're looking at about 35% growth this year and 25% growth next year as well. And these drugs make up about 40% of total sales for Eli Lilly overall. So this is clearly the dominant products for Eli Lilly right now, and as long as they remain popular, you would expect that earnings growth should continue. The problem, though, of course, is valuation and competition. They're not the only game in town. I mentioned Novo Nordisk. There are companies like Hims and Hers that have compounded versions of these drugs. They're not exactly generics, but the FDA allows them because of the supply shortages that have been pretty well publicized because of the popularity of these drugs.
Paul, when we talk about the popularity, like what percentage of Americans are using these now, and how much bigger is the market? I know that these are generally at this point being used to target obesity and weight loss, and I know that that's like 35-40% of the American population. How many people are actually using these now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have the exact numbers on the number of people using these two specific medications from Lilly or their alternatives from Novo Nordisk, but suffice it to say, the more indications that these drugs are approved for, and that's what keeps happening. The FDA seems to be approving them for other diseases where they find that there is a strong, effect, in mitigating weight loss for various other diseases as well. I think that it's going to become increasingly popular. And I think the next milestone for potentially Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and other drug companies like Pfizer that are working on medications is to develop a pill version of them so that instead of having to take a once weekly shot, you might be taking a once daily pill, which I think for a lot of people in in America and around the world, that's a much easier sell in terms of taking a medication, just a pill a day as opposed to a shot a week.
Paul, one of the things that I know I've seen talked about is in regards to this is, if these are able to do what it appears they can do it at this point, they can pretty dramatically reshape a ton of spending, not just in healthcare, but throughout other sectors of the U.S. economy. What kind of things could we potentially see as a result of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's what a lot of investors and companies are trying to figure out right now. We have already seen, and I've written a couple of stories for Barron's as well as many of my colleagues about the impact that we've seen on food stocks. I did a story not that long ago about Conagra being hit by concerns about people snacking less. I also did a recent story about Medtronic. So even within healthcare, worries that if you are someone that has a stent or defibrillator, or if you're taking insulin and they're big in diabetes and cardiovascular equipment, maybe there will be a lower prevalence of those types of diseases if people are eating less, eating more healthy. I think it still remains to be seen whether or not these drugs are going to be kind of like the miracle cure-all that stops people from ever wanting to snack or make a bad eating decision ever again. I think we need to figure out over the next couple of years what the popularity of these drugs will mean for Americans' dietary habits and what happens with other diseases that, let's be honest, aren't all about what you eat and what you drink. There are many hereditary factors, that determine why people get diabetes and heart disease that, I don't think Zepbound or Wegovy will necessarily end, even if people are using these drugs. So I think there may be an overreaction with some of the other healthcare companies and consumer food beverage stocks that have been hit by concerns about the popularity of Zepbound and Mounjaro and Wegovy and Ozempic. I mean, they're clearly helping people lose weight, but I don't think they're going to change Americans' dietary habits forever.
Very good. Paul, I appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much for the time, and I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend.
Same to you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
That is Paul LaMonica from Barron's talking about Eli Lilly with the ticker LLY. Mike, anything that we haven't covered today that you want to make sure we get to?
Yes, I think it's finally happening. We've been talking about this for a while, but peak craft breweries might have occurred here. We have, just in the last few weeks, a number of acquisitions and consolidations after what has been several of these over the last few years too. But Jack's Abbey in Framingham has now acquired Wormtown out of Worcester. The parent company of New Hampshire's Smutty Nose recently reached a deal to acquire Wachusett Brewery. Dorchester Brewing has taken over Aeronaut. Ipswich has hooked up with Riverwalk. This is all according to the Boston Globe, and I think lines up with the trends that we have been seeing here. But there was such outrageously fast growth in the craft brewery market for, what do we want to call it, the better part of a decade and a half, that I think that one's kind of coming back down to earth here, and we're seeing more and more consolidation of these brands that are probably having a tough time differentiating in the marketplace.
What do you make of it in terms of why now? Is it just, we've tried enough IPAs and we're ready to move on? Is it?
Seems to me. I mean, there was a time when that was what I defaulted to every time I had a drink was an IPA, and it's just not the case now. I think there's growing influence in bourbon and whiskey products. I think there's growing interest in seltzers, and I just don't think that there's enough market for all of these things to exist and be dominant at the same time without all of us becoming very inebriated.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I think that's a good way to look at it. Taking a look at markets, mixed as we head towards the top of the hour. The Dow's now down 71 points. S&P is up 11 and the Nasdaq's up 65. So again, kind of just chopping around, no clear direction right now. But next week, we got some data coming out, so buckle up. A short week next week, but we got ISM manufacturing, job openings, ISM services, jobless claims, and the August jobs report. Hope everyone has a great Labor Day weekend. If you're able to get some time off, even better. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week on the Financial Exchange.
This Veterans Day weekend, help honor all who have served this country. Join us on Saturday, November 9th for the 9th Annual Disabled American